It's Wood Elf Day 6, and I think it's about time to bring you a battle report with the new Arcane Journal Wood Elves. I've been having a lot of fun with them, been playing around, and this was one of the games that I lost, actually. No spoilers, but it was a really interesting game. It was really dynamic. It felt like a lot of decision making made a difference in this game, and I thought it was a good one to bring to you as an example. So, my opponent, I was playing into Tom, who was playing a very aggressive Beastman list. It's double level 4 Bray Shaman, triple level 2 Bray Shaman as well. So you've got 2 of the great Bray Shamans, 3 of the level 2 Bray Shamans as well. All of them are going elementalism. There's a variety of magic items in there. The general is a Hagtree Fetish Power Scroll Flying Carpet character with uncanny senses, which gives him additional initiative. So if there's a risk of, if I'm going to overrun, say that it's stood behind a unit that gets charged, the unit that gets charged dies, I overrun into the general, it's more likely to be able to evade out of the way, passing that initiative test, and then combining it with the flying carpet. It's very hard to pin this model down. We've got the second level 4 with a power scroll and the Wand of Jet. If you roll any doubles using the Wand of Jet, you lose the ability to cast with it, but it otherwise gives you +1 to cast and to spell, as far as I remember. Triple elementalism casters, one of them with Jagged Dagger and ambushes, one with the Ruby Ring of Ruin and ambushes. These join a unit of Gores, which can ambush in the back line. So basically, you just bring in some Gores in the back line with, or it might have been Ungors, sorry, you bring in some Ungors in the back line with some short bows, and you also just go, here's, potentially 5 magic missiles, which is what it ended up being in this game. It was a real test for me to play against. Finally, there is one more Bray Shaman with the Skin of Man as well. It's very MSU focused. You'll understand when you see it on the tabletop. Double, 2 units of 5 Gores, or 1 unit 5, 1 unit 6, triple Razor Gore, triple Tusk Gore, triple Ungor, triple Dragon Ogre, not Shartax, just normal Dragon Ogres for points, and then there's the 5 Harpies as well. So 3 units of 5 Harpies. This is super MSU, and it's a list that Wood Elves are really going to struggle to deal with, because you can only kill so many things, and they can full pressure towards you. They're going to end up in combat with you. Normally, when you're playing Wood Elves, you don't want to end up in combat, so that's going to be a big problem for me to deal with in this game, and I think I deal with it okay. There are some tweaks to how I would have played it, but that's fine. We can go through that as we go through. And then onto my list. This is the list that I was talking about in either yesterday's video or the day before. I have lost track a little bit. I haven't specifically recorded this in a certain order, so there is, things may be coming out in a slightly different direction than they were previously. The build is, and it's not updated on the right side of the screen here, just because new recruit's not up to date, so I can't actually put all the new items in. So the Glade Lord is on a Great Stag. I've gone for Ogre Blade, Talisman of Protection, and Aspect of the Bear. That gets me up to base strength and toughness 5. I'm going to be running around with my Ogre Blade, get me to strength 7. Pretty tanky. 4 wounds at T5 with a 3-up armor save and a 5-up ward. This model is just going to be able to slap, basically. Does a lot of damage. It's a 360-degree line of sight skirmisher. The Stag adds some output as well. It can deal with most things. Anything sort of smaller than a Dragon Lord, it's probably pretty happy mixing it up in there. I've got 2 wizards. I've got a level 2 and a level 4. The level 4's on a unicorn. I went with the build that I've been talking about, where I go for Lore Familiar. I'm going with the Heartwood Pendant, so I can pick Lore of the Wilds, and I've also gone double Power Scrolls and Befuddlement of Mischiefs. This means I'm more likely to get my Durthu's Wrath off, which is important, because this is a list that is not necessarily going to have the lowest initiative, so I need to be able to debuff there. The level 2 is rocking around with Battle Magic in this example. Playing with a Steed and Ruby Ring of Ruin, no other rules there. This is good. Actually, I was really impressed with just the Battle Magic caster. I did roll one of the spells that I wanted, which was nice, so pretty happy with that. Into core, 2 units of Deepwood Scouts with the Hagbane Tips, a unit of 5 Glade Guard with Hagbane Tips, 8 Glade Riders with Hagbane Tips, reserve move, a unit champion at standard, and the Banner of Midsummer's Eve to ignore cover. Because the bases are so big and they're skirmish, it's very difficult for you to be able to see entire enemy units with the whole unit, so this just means that you can play a lot tighter. You can take up less space with this quite large footprint unit and still get some effective shots off. Then with the reserve move, you don't have to mess around too much as well. Outside of core as well, we've got another 8 Deepwood Scouts. Again, Hagbane Tips there. 5 Sisters of the Thorn with the Standard Bearer and the Unit Champion. They've got a reserve banner. In fact, I went full command on this squad, gave them the banner of the Hunter King, which is Vanguard. This means that turn 1 I can Vanguard forwards, and if I want to, be in dispel range of enemy casters before they get to cast their enchantments, which is really strong. 2 units of Wild Riders with shields, no command, and then 2 Great Eagles to act as skirmish screens for those. Not skirmish, but like frenzy blocking screens. They also provide some cover as well. They're relatively tanky for what they do, and most importantly, they match the Wild Rider's ability to charge. If you go for something that doesn't have Swift Stride, you're going to have an issue, and the Great Eagles, they can, fly 10, or is it fly 9? Anyway, they've got a long fly move, they've got Swift Stride, they're able to charge, potentially charge over things as well, using that fly move if they have line of sight. So, this list I've gone with, I think, is a fairly standard sort of skirmishy list. I wanted to try out the Wild Riders. I think I'm actually pretty impressed with those. Maybe we'll try some more of those as well later on. I also wanted to try out the new Law of the Wilds. I think this was a really bad match for it, and I didn't get a lot of use out of it, so I'm going to keep trying it, see how I can do with that one. And then the Glade Lord, I'm pretty happy with the Glade Lord build. It did exactly what it said on the tin. It did a lot of work. So, coming into deployment, you can see here, if you just look at the bottom of the screen, you can see, my god, how many things does Tom have? It is an absolute cluster. In fact, if I go up there, we can see the deployment label. So this is deployment, a couple of Dragon Ogres on the left-hand flank, one towards the centre, lots of skirmishers being used as screens to stop me from basically hitting him with stuff that matters. Tom's got a lot of relatively tanky units, so the chariots and the razor gores, but that don't necessarily have the best save or too many wounds, so poison shooting can do a lot of work into this list. I'm going to have to really lean on that where I can. I have got a lot less drops, so I am going to be probably getting the I'm definitely getting the +1 to go first. I'm probably going to be going first, and you can see here I've deployed respectfully, so that there's no way that he can sort of fly forwards, magic missile me with any Vile Tides. Oh, something to mention. Rolling spells. I rolled spells with the Glade Riders. I ended up getting, I think it was 5 and 6. So I kept the Oaken Shield, got rid of Curse of Cowardly Flight, just took the Forest Walking there. Sorry, not Forest Walking, took the Tree Singing there, so I could provide some mobile cover as needed, some move blocking. I did also put my Forest down here, which basically gave me a huge chunk of the board that I could play around. Yes, it blocks line of sight for me, but it also blocks line of sight for my opponent's 5 Vile Tide casters that also has 4 Wind Blasts and some other bits and pieces in there. Tom rolled really well on the offensive spells, so I needed to be able to try and not die, so having that little area to play around was good. And otherwise, it's a lot of sort of difficult terrain in the centre. Over here, there's a building there. It's going to be quite difficult for me to stop him from running me over. So what I want to do is I want to try and punch a hole in his list to get through. So deployment, most things play a little bit back. The Sister of the Thorn with the Vanguard banner are towards the front. The reason for that is I want the flexibility to move forwards and try and snipe out one of his Razor Gore by using the new magic missile. 18-inch range, strength 6, AP -2, flat 2 damage each. It's really strong into something like a Razor Gore or a Dragon Ogre, even with their additional ward save on the Dragon Ogres, or the Chariots. The Chariots would hate that as well. But Tom has very cleverly, or very well, managed to layer his level 4 wizards, so he is fully covering my ability to cast spells without, getting them dispelled. Roll-off happens, I get turn 1, which is good because against this list I feel like I'm going to need all of the output that I can get. And here you can see turn 1, I move not aggressively forwards, but I start staging. The Wild Riders on the left flank from this perspective here, they move forwards and the Eagle is move blocking them as well. So if he tries to do some sort of ridiculous frenzy baiting, I can ignore it. But honestly, there's not really all that much that he could frenzy bait with on this side of the map. There are Harpies here, but I am planning to shoot them. The Eagle moves forwards as well, and I positioned it so that he can charge me with Harpies, but we talked about it in terms of the output of the Harpies. In a single squad of 5 Harpies, or even if you put 2 squads in, you're going to get 4 models in base to base. That's 8 attacks, going to be hitting on 4s, going to be wounding on 5s. You get 1, maybe 2 wounds through. You could spike and kill the Eagle, but it's unlikely. But then I get to make 3 attacks back, hitting on 3s, wounding on 2s, and there's a stomp attack in there. It's kind of just too risky for the Harpies to make their way in. it's pretty likely that I actually managed to win the combat there. Other than that, the unit of Glade Riders in the deployment zone has moved up and touched the wood, and there's the Spell Singer in there as well. That is the model closest to the left tip from this perspective. The Deepwood Scouts moved over to the right a little bit just to make sure that I was getting as much vision possible. This unit of Deepwood Scouts that has, for some reason, a big red circle around them, they stayed still, so they could just launch some shots into whatever they could see. And other than that, I just sort of moved around, tried to get some bits and pieces done, and take some early shots without exposing myself. Shooting went pretty well. My poison performed for me this game. Sometimes you find that it does nothing. In this game, I thought it was at or maybe above par for the early game, which was really nice. So, put some shots into the Harpies over here, killed 2, caused them to fall back in good order. What Tom had done is he'd interlaced them, so the each unit was providing cover to the other unit. If you have 3 at the front and 2 at the back, or, you know, however you sort it, maybe it's the other way around, 2 at the front and 3 at the back, you can layer it so that you can never see more than half the unit, so you're always getting at very minimum light cover, but potentially giving heavy cover depending on where you're shooting from. Obviously, when I've got a lot of ballistic skill shooting, that's a problem, but because I was shooting poison shots, and with all the modifiers stacked, I was still, you know, 6s to hit were letting me do damage. I was getting a lot of poison wounds, and I killed a couple there. They fled backwards. The second unit fled as well because the panicked unit fled through them. That's one of the downsides of doing the interlaced units like that. You can cause panic in your own units. Other than that, just chipped a few wounds. Killed, I think, 4 of the skirmish units that were in front of these chariots here. They fled through. Didn't cause much panic because skirmishers don't cause panic in non-skirmishers. All of the skirmishers there, including the characters, passed their leadership test, so that wasn't a problem. And then I also just put a few poison shots into the chariots and did a wound here. On the right-hand flank down at the bottom, you can see that I managed to get a single wound into the Razor Gore. That was from these Deepwood Scouts. I think 4 of them could see, and I got 1 wound through, so that was fine. And these Glade Guard up in the top right, who are mostly there to screen, because Tom does have a terrifying unit in ambush, which is a unit of Gore with 2 wizards in as well. They're mostly screening off this side of the board to make it difficult for him to come back in. So, killed a couple of the Harpies over here, didn't cause panic, but again, we're just trying to thin him out and cause as many issues as possible. So, not a bad turn 1 for the Wood Elf archery, Wood Elf shooting, I should say. Over to Tom's turn 1, and this is what we're expecting to see. This is full send, basically. He's gone, okay, you're pretty much in the middle of the board. It's going to be kind of difficult for you to get round. A lot of the stuff, like here, wants to be in combat, so he's not really worried about the Wild Riders running around and behind him, because I'd have to send the eagle with them to block, yada yada. It would end up probably not being worthwhile. So he's just saying, you know what, I think I've got enough units here that are going to be difficult for you to kill. I'm going to layer it so the overruns kind of suck for you, and we'll see if you can manage. Everything moves forwards. Nothing casts a spell, because I've set it up so that I was out of range of all of his spell casting in terms of magic missiles on turn 1. And I think this actually lures me into a little bit of a false sense of security, because he comes forwards, does no damage to me, and goes, okay, your turn. He does get, I think, a couple of earthen ramparts off. If you look here, you see there's 1 on this unit of skirmishers down in the centre, and then 1 at the unit of skirmishers back here as well. But not anything that I'm particularly too worried about. Maybe I should have been a little bit more respectful with the Rangers, but I think when you're playing against a full send army like Beastmen, it's difficult to be respectful about the Rangers. So, by the by there. On to my turn 2, and this is sort of I wouldn't say do or die, but this is a turn that I have to put a lot of pressure on my opponent. So, you can see here, I do put a lot of pressure on my opponent. I'm pretty happy with how this turn goes. Mostly. There is a trend in the sort of middle of this game, the sort of turn 2 through turn 4. I think me and Tom both have turns where we find that our turn kind of goes a little bit worse for us than it does for our opponent, which is not ideal. Not the sort of consistency you're looking for, but if you're not playing with dragons, that sort of thing does happen more often when you're charging light units into other units that can do swingy or spiky damage, we'll say. So, on the left-hand flank, I charge a unit of 5 Wild Riders into both of the Dragon Ogres here, and I charge the Eaglers in as well. This leads to a situation where Tom does need to decide whether he wants the 3 Harpies that I'm touching, just in terms of having to maximise, whether he wants them to join the combat with the Eagle, or if he wants to, move away. we agree that it is better for them not to join the combat through the accidental contact, because the eagle could have just potentially picked up all of them. 3 attacks hitting on 3s, wounding on 2s. Then there's the stomp in there as well. Math says I killed 2.5 to 3 of them, so it would have, he loses the flank. He doesn't get the extra combat res for them doing anything like any extra initiative or anything like that, so decided not to go for it. However, this combat goes very poorly. I completely whiff my rolls. Wild Riders are meant to be good in combat, and across this game they have been, but in this combat, unfortunately, they whiff. I managed to put 11 attacks into the single Dragon Ogre that you can see takes 2 wounds over here. And yeah, 11 attacks hitting on 3s, wounding on 3s. I feel like I should have done more than just 2 wounds, but I do just 2 wounds. The eagle does no wounds. The other model does no wounds into the Dragon Ogre that it was in contact with. So all told, I make 15 attacks and a stomp, and I do 2 wounds in total, whereas Tom does back, I think, 4 wounds, including the stomps, wins combat. The eagle properly flees. He can't catch me because of the bit of impassable terrain here, and then the Dragon Ogre that's taken some damage, it follows up the unit that has fallen back in good order, this unit of Wild Riders. So a little bit of a disaster on the left-hand flank, but that's okay because the centre is good and the right-hand side is good. You can see here I've reserve moved this unit of Glade Riders, but they have managed to do some decent shooting. There were 2 units of Harpies over here. I managed to kill, out of the 8, I killed 6 of them between the Ruby Ring of Ruin and the General Short by Shooting. I have to do a little bit of wiggling, so I move the wizard from here, where it is, into sort of this spot here so it can see through, and I do lose a couple more bow shots to make that happen, but it's worth because Ruby Ring of Ruin is very good at picking up models. Psych, no it's not. I get it off and I do, I think, 2 wounds, which is very disappointing. It ends up leaving 2 Harpies alive, staring down a couple of units of Deepwood Scouts, which is a pain in the backside because I don't have quick shot, and yeah, not super in love with that as an option, but what can you do? It's not always going to go well for you. So, in the centre here, I do manage to shoot the already wounded Tuscarora Chariot to death, which is nice because they're going to push forwards and they really threaten my elves with the impact hits and just the amount of output they have. So I want to get rid of that one. And over here as well, managed to do some damage. I think I shoot this unit of screening skirmishers almost to death and otherwise declare some charges. Now, the charges don't go well. This is my Stag Lord, who was sat in the dangerous terrain, but he wasn't that far away. I think the charge was something like a 16, or it might have been a 15. Basically, because I'm charging 8 inches, I've got move through cover, so I ignore the -1 to my movement. The lowest of 2 dice, but then the Swift Stride. I felt comfortable making whatever the charge was. I think it was a 15 off the top of my head. And anyway, whatever I rolled, I was 1 inch short of making it. So I end up stumbling forwards, and I don't even get out of the terrain, which is a real pain in the backside. However, the Wild Riders also do charge into this unit of screening Ungor, who do stand and shoot and kill one, which is sad when each model is, bringing 4 attacks, and you don't really want to be losing one of those on the way in. But it's okay. And the Eagle goes in as well, and just kills a couple of skirmishers who then do end up dying and freeing up some space there as well. So my turn 2, a little bit of a mixed bag. Failure in the combat on the left-hand flank, but on the right-hand flank, the combats go very well. Kill the screening Ungors, and then I do overrun into the Razor Gore there. This is a little bit scary, because yes, I do still get to use my hunting spears. Yes, I still get the initiative bonus, so I'm going to be striking first. This is all great. However, slight issue, only 1 model's in base-to-base contact, so I'm not making, 12 attacks plus all of the horse attacks. I'm actually making 6 attacks. No, I'm making 5 attacks because I don't have Furious Charge because I overran less than 3 inches. So I'm making, 1 attack per model plus Frenzy for the one on the outside, and then I've got 3 more attacks. I've got 5 in total. A little bit rough. I am concerned about how well that one's going to go. It could definitely swing either way. But overall, I feel like I have bought myself some time, bought myself some space, and the fact that the Dragon Ogres are going to be running around this chunk of dangerous, impassable terrain, then they've got to interact with the difficult terrain that I can hide behind. I'm not too upset that this side of the board has gone wrong, and as long as I rally my Eagle on the next turn, I'm going to feel pretty good about how things go. coming into Tom's turn number 2, and yeah, there's a pretty key thing here that has not gone well. And if we look across, you can see there was this nice unit here, which I've been trying to give the regen save. This is the Sister of the Thorn plus the Unicorn. I'm trying to give them the regen save. I'm trying to keep them alive, but they do get blown up. And the reason they get blown up is because you can see over on the right hand flank here, this is the ambushing unit with Vile Tide and the Ruby Ring of Ruin and all of the other rules as well. And then we've got a wizard here in the center, a wizard here in the center, and a wizard here behind this unit. So this wizard here doesn't interact with the unit sisters, but I think most of the other 4 wizards do, which is really rough. On the left-hand flank, Tom isn't able to charge into the Eagle, which is good because he's blocked by the terrain, and this is something that we knew going in, because otherwise I was just going to run off the board, which was a pain in the backside. And the 2-wound Dragon Ogre does finish off the single Wild Rider that's left alone, and then fails to turn around, which is really nice for me. Buys me a little bit more time. You know, he rolls, I think it was a 9 on the Test to Restrain, and then because he destroyed the unit, he gets another Test to Restrain after he's overrun. Rolls another 9, just ends up looking towards the board edge. You know, real pain in the backside. So for me, if the Eagle rallies, I'm going to be able to screen the entire side of the board for a whole turn with just one model, which is really nice. Other than that, you can see the 2 Harpies have charged into the Deepwood Scouts. They were unfortunately too close to the Harpies to be able to stand and shoot. They haven't got quick shot on their bows, and the Harpies do have a good movement, so no luck there. You know, it's what it is. And otherwise, Eagle dies to combat here. I think it's combo charged by the... I want to say it's combo charged by the Chariot and the Dragon Ogre, but it's definitely charged by a couple of things. Does get eaten alive. And yeah, it basically comes down to the shooting. In Tom's shooting phase, he was keeping track, actually, because he was tracking how many doubles he was rolling on his spells. Given that he's rolling the Wand of Jet, any doubles can cause issues. So he decided just to track how many doubles he rolled for all of his wizards, just as sort of a curiosity for how often it came up. Didn't end up blowing up at all, which is a real shame for me. But he had his 2 wizards come in here, and he asked me if I wanted to evade when he targeted my Glade Lord here with the first Vile Tide. And I looked at it and I went, how many things you got in range? And I think he had 4 Vile Tides, 4 Wind Blasts, and a Ruby Ring of Ruin. So I decided, yes, I will evade here. Evading, for anyone who doesn't know, is the evasive special rule is when you are targeted with a shooting attack and you have this rule, you can make a fallback in good order, and because it's a fallback in good order, I can also use my Swift Stride. So I rolled high enough to get through the Deepwood Scouts, which put me out of vision for almost everything, out of range for almost everything, and put me potentially not able to charge depending on what happened with this unit here in front of them. Fortunately or unfortunately, the shooting that now wasn't going to go into my general then went into this unit here, and unfortunately the Sisters of the Thorn and the Wizard got blown up. I want to say 4 of them died from a single Vile Tide, and then I rolled a panic test and ran off the board, because there were 2 points at this game where the Hagtree Fetish Vile Tide came up. One of them he rolled incredibly poorly, and the other one he rolled incredibly well. I think this was the one where he rolled incredibly poorly. I only lost a few models and I ran off the board. The next time he rolled, I think it was 7 million wounds or something like that. Not to exaggerate at all, but Hagtree Fetish is incredibly not okay when comboed with the amount of hits you can get from Vile Tide. Anyway, turn 2 for Tom. We've come through, he's killed my wizard, which is a real problem. I do have a level 2 wizard, but I'm probably not going to be able to dispel much with it, and in fact I don't for the rest of the game. And that's a pretty big blow, because the way they were postured, they were ready to try and do some sort of charge. You know, they're not the best combat unit, even with the assailment spell in there, but they can definitely pick up, for example, a unit of skirmishers, overrun, then turn around and, you know, look to get into the back of one of these wizards in the centre here, or look to get into the back of a chariot, something like that. Not ideal. On the other hand, I was talking earlier about how it wasn't always great for us on our own terms in the early turns of the game. I win combat with the 4 Wild Riders. I think I kill him with the 6, you know, the 5 attacks that I can make. I don't think it even gets down to the siege, which is nice. So, kills the big pig, and then I overrun, as you have to, because you're frenzied. But because I destroyed a unit, I get to test to restrain and reform after I've done my overrun, which was, hitting the wall there, and I turn around, so I'm able to face potentially charging the general in the centre here, or, another wizard. It gives me lots of flexibility, and I can even just go into the Tuskar Chariot or something like that if I want to pick up points and then overrun into things on Tom's turn. This is actually a fantastic time to talk about overrunning. So at this point in the game, I've realised I'm in some real danger if I'm ever not in combat on Tom's turn and I'm in range of his magic missiles. He's got 11 magic missiles. I'm going to die. Or it might have been 10. Sorry, it might have only been 10. It was only double digits for the amount of magic missiles that Tom was packing. So if I'm not in combat with my T3 elves with a 5-up save, and they've got a 6-up ward, that's cool, I'm probably going to fall over. So any decision making on charges I make, I'm probably looking to maybe not go for the highest value target, because if I do, theoretically I end up not in combat the following turn. I'm trying to line up multi-charges, and that is what I do on this next turn. So coming into my turn 3, you can see here I do charge the Glade Lord forwards, and I charge it into the skirmishers that are in front of the Dragon Ogre here. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to meet them. We're both skirmishers, so I just come out and then across, and then whatever the facing is, we didn't think about it too much. I was definitely going to hit the Dragon Ogre there, and then the Wild Riders charge into the Tuskar Chariot, and then when I kill it, I'm going to overrun into the Dragon Ogre there. And again, that means that I'm going to be killing stuff on Tom's turn, so that I can come out of his turn into my turn, and then I'm able to charge things, which is absolutely ideal. Other than that, combat. I didn't talk about the combat with the harpies. These two harpies were the absolute bane of my life, and I really sort of grew to respect them a little bit more, having played against them. So even though there's only 2 models, there were 4 attacks in there, hitting on 4s, wounding on 4s. After the first round of combat, Tom was pretty consistently killing 0 to 1 each turn, although he did spike on one of the turns, and I was consistently killing 0. I have a better weapon skill. I was hitting them on 3s. I was quite often putting 4 attacks or 3 attacks into these 2 models, hitting on 3s, getting like 2 hits, and then rolling like a 1 and a 3 to wound, or a double 1 to wound. They drove me absolutely nuts, and they tied up a lot of my shooting for a huge chunk of the game, which was a huge problem, actually. So on my turn, this unit stands here. The unit of Deepwood Scouts deliberately stands where they are. This was a considered choice. This is the unit in the middle of the woods. The reason for that is they're 6.1 inches away from the board edge. So what I wanted was to be able to evasive backwards and not run off the board. But if I do get charged, I also have the flexibility to stand and shoot. I'm in terrain. I feel pretty comfortable that they probably won't reach me. This is the sort of big blunder that I make in this game. I forget that this unit has fire and flee. When you fire and flee, it's not a fallback in good order, but it's effectively a fallback in good order in that you go the highest of 2d6. So what I should have done on my next turn is fire and flee and then run away. You don't auto-rally unless you have feigned flight, but this puts me in a much stronger position than it would have done if there's, it would stop me risking being caught in a charge, but we'll get to that next turn. Other than that, I move up here. So this unit was touching the wood so that it could do some shooting through, and then afterwards, reserve move backwards. I don't feel like I need to screen off this area of the board anymore because the ambushing units come back on, and unfortunately the thing that I tried to set up over here with the eagle that I was talking about doesn't pan out. The eagle flees, it doesn't rally. It does only have leadership 6, so I was asking for a little bit much, but it does mean it's a little bit harder for me to keep this side of the board clear. Other than that, combat. Win both the combats here over into the Dragon Ogres, otherwise shooting. Kill a few bits and pieces, not all that much, mostly just do a couple of wounds to this Tuskar Chariot in the centre. Quite an underwhelming turn in terms of shooting, but that's why we bring combat, and it's why I'm really starting to have the Wild Riders grow on me. I think they're aggressively okay, and they're really cheap as well for what you get, so I think I'm more and more willing to play around with them. If it's like 150 points for 6 of them with shields, that's not too bad at all. So my turn 3, combat goes well, and it leaves me tied up here so that I won't get blasted off the board. Shooting goes kind of whatever, and I'm set up so that I'm not, in my mind, I'm not risking too many charges on the next turn for Tom. This is where I've made my mistake. So, charges do happen. As you can see on Tom's turn, I do kill the the Dragon Ogre, but he's also charged into the rear with a unit of, I want to say this was a unit of just some skirmishing Ungor, but it might have been Harpies. I can't remember off the top of my head. Anyway, he runs into the back of that unit, which means that, you know, he's looking to give them combat res instead of just letting me wail on the Dragon Ogre for free. Otherwise, just sort of scooches around a little bit and does also manage to pick up the entire unit of Deepwood Scouts that was over here. Turns out when your only defense is running away, it's not a great defense. I didn't bother evading here because the things he was shooting me with, he had the range on me to do so, and yeah, this unit of Deepwood Scouts gets picked up in the shooting phase. Other than that, he declares a charge with the Chariot here and the Razor Gore as well into the unit of Deepwood Scouts. I feel pretty secure with, you know, I go for the stand and shoot. I try and kill the pig because that's the one with the Swift Stride, so it's the one that's more likely to catch me. It doesn't go well. I forget that I could have fire and fled, and he does actually make the really big roll to get in, which I think, off the top of my head, needed something like 9 on the dice from the 2d6 pick the highest, 2d6 pick the lowest, and then the d6 Swift Stride. So it wasn't impossible, but I felt it was a worthwhile risk. But yeah, anyway, over here definitely should have fire and fled. The unit with the 2 Harpies continues. This is the turn he kills 3 of them. Both units give ground, but because they're in the wood, don't go anywhere. And on the left-hand flank, the Dragon Ogre charges into the Eagle as well. It's fleeing. It just has to flee, you know, continues to flee, and it runs off the board. So, starting to feel a little bit squeezed in here, which is not ideal. However, I do have my very killy Staglord in the centre of the army, and I've got my Wild Riders here potentially able to do some damage, which is pretty ideal. I'm pretty okay with that. Coming into my turn 4, and this is pretty okay. I feel like I'm starting to pick things up. The problem with playing against Beastmen, especially Beastmen MSU, is you feel like you're killing a lot of stuff, and then you look at their army and you go, huh, I've got 700 points, and you've got less than a quarter of your models left. Oh, it's because all of your points are in your characters. And I know that that's very much how like a Dragon army plays as well, but it's less obvious when you're just trying to chase down 5 models on 25mm bases or 30mm bases, whatever they are, that are throwing, you know, witch bolts out of their hands, which is horrifying for this sort of list to play against. Anyway, into my turn 4. Combats in the woods continue. I'm still not happy about it. It's still going poorly for me there. The combats over here, I do kill the unit that I charge into with the Stag, which was one of the units of 2 just skirmishers. I then try and overrun into the General. The General does test to evade, gets out of the way, and just flies over here, I think it is. And I overrun into the unit of 6 skirmishers as well. Again, this is my plan. I want to be killing stuff on Tom's turn. I don't want to be out in the open. Also, the Wild Riders over here finish off this unit and overrun into the pig there. I think maybe I passed the screenshot too early for some reason. Oh, this unit was fleeing. Sorry, that's what it is. So I think I overrun into the pig. Can't quite remember how. Basically, both of these sets of units end up dying at some point between Tom's turn 3 and my turn 4. Apologies for the slight blurriness there. But what happens is the Wild Riders are now out on the flank. They are quite far away. They're finding it difficult to interact with things, but they are also holding some points that, you know, I don't want to just give up for free. This unit here has had to come out of hiding because the Dragon Ogres are going to cause them some real issue, and if I stay where I am, he can just close the net on me next turn. So what I try to do is I move around this bit of impassable terrain, and between the impassable terrain and the tree singing, I've made myself a little block where it's going to be difficult for my opponents to interact with me. Unfortunately, tree singing is dispelled on a 7, and I can't get out of range of his level 4 wizard, so it would have to go very well for me to not have this wizard dispel my tree singing, but I'm behind here, things are going poorly, I'm trying to play through the margins. Does it work? Not at all. Coming into Tom's turn 4, in fact, did we pass that incorrectly? Let's have a look here. Turn 4 Tom. Oh yes, there we go. The wood's gone. At this point, there's not a lot left to say in the game. Basically, what happens is Tom gets rid of the wood, blasts this unit to pieces. Oh yes, this is the Vile Tide that does, I think, 7 wounds from not even that many hits. I think he rolls like 15 hits and does 7 wounds or something wild like that. But Que Sera Sera picks up this unit that I knew was probably at risk but had to move anyway. Combat over here. Does manage to catch and kill the remaining Deepwood Scouts from the squad that were in combat with the Harpies. They overrun into the flank of the other Deepwood Scouts, so I think they must have ran off the board here. And basically all I've got left is my Lord with the Ogre Blade and the Wild Riders. Am I going to be able to put it back? Let's just speed through the last couple of turns. Again, charge the stag into the back of the combat to try and save the Deepwood Scouts as well, because I'm more in save point mode here. And I decide to try and keep the Deepwood Scouts alive. Sorry, not Deepwood Scouts. I decide to try and keep the Wild Riders alive. So I tuck them in, do some measuring out, see where the 2 wizards can get to if they leave the unit and just run over this way. This is what I think is probably the safest spot for me to put them in. So not a great turn 5, and I'm quite exposed here with 2 units that I've managed to keep not exposed for the rest of the game. Tom's turn 5 blows up the Deepwood Scouts. That's unfortunate. I do evasive behind them with the general, so that keeps him alive for now. And over here you can see these 5 Wild Riders are currently out of the way, so currently not being interacted with. Onto my T6. In fact, this is both T6s. I do get tabled. I try to get away, but on Tom's turn, he does manage to shoot me to pieces, and that leaves it being, we didn't do the exact points, but it was something like a 16-4 victory once banners and general points were all told in there. So a great game, really engaging, really interacting, had a lot of fun with it, but I think a difficult matchup. How do I feel about the list going forwards? I like it. I still like it. I think this is an all-comers list, and I think the Wild Riders, I want to put a little bit more oomph into them. I was unimpressed with the Sisters and the level 4 on Unicorn in this game, but they didn't actually get to do much, so I want to give them a good couple of games to try and see if they work. I feel like this list needs some way of dealing with undead, and that's kind of one of the ways that you can deal with undead, alongside, you know, hitting them with a Wild Rider charge or something like that. So yeah, I'm trying to find the balance. There is a world where I just go double Battle Magic caster or an Elementalism caster, a Battle Magic caster. I'm not 100% sure about that, but overall pretty happy with the results. Thank you for watching. Thank you for getting to the end of the video. If you've reached this point and you haven't already, I would really appreciate a like, a comment, a subscription if you haven't done those things. It just helps me get seen by more people, boost me up in the algorithm, all of the stuff that the YouTubers do like to say. If you would like to support me in my goal to become a full-time YouTuber, I would absolutely appreciate that. You can become a member below. There are various perks to those, name at the end of the videos, all that good stuff, but it also unlocks some VIP areas in Discord if you become a Longbeard or Ground Knight tier supporter. Those VIP sections are the only parts that are locked away in Discord. You don't have to be a member to join the Discord. I'd recommend that you should. We've got about 450, 500 people on there. It's a great place for discussion, a lot of fun. I do try and chime in as much as possible. And it's also where the Fix My List show lists are put, and also if you are one of the Grail Knight or Longbeard tier supporters, where you participate in choosing which list I play in the monthly Pick My List series.